and say that the greatest violators in the world, the greatest violators of human rights, of democracy, of transparency, are not found in Africa. We don't have the means even to reach other continents. The greatest violators are the UK and the US and other European countries. This must be said loud and clear. They must preach water and drink water. They shouldn't preach water and drink wine. Look at what has happened in Iraq and the Middle East in general. If indeed destabilization and instability can lead to situations where forced labor is rampant, then we must tell our friends, indeed they are our friends, that enough is enough.
All right, just refreshing our memory there from our archives as well, hacking back in, going downstream of history. And Farah Malim, you served as a speaker. He was a member of parliament. Well, he was a minister.
He was in parliament before then. He actually became a minister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He was a good. Is he still alive? I hope he's still alive.
No, he's a let. He's a let.
He is deceased. Yeah, and he had his brother who was also at the Kenya School of Law. So he was a good guy. He did his best during his time. Yeah, we were. You know, these are kind of things that nobody could say those days, eh? And this is what people are saying now. But the guy was saying it what?
When he was Minister for Labour.
When
he was ahead of his time.
Yeah,
he was ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. Well, we appreciated it even then. You need sometimes when they come and prescribe for you and tell you, oh, Kenya is this. You remember how they used to try and arm twist us?
He's the encyclopedia of parliament history.
That's
we always ask him.
We gravitate to him to tell us.
Tell me again what happened during this time. So he's a great resource to me.
We served with him as a minister. He was a great guy. He was a good friend of mine also.
Interesting, he's talking about Middle East
right
now, and what is happening with Israel and Palestine, just briefly.
Absolutely. And now we've gone out of a way right now to condemn what you call the victims, just because we want to be on the good side of the Jewish, global Jewish and international community and the Western world. How do you tell a superpower, a nuclear power, and stone throwing boys and girls who have just been humiliated and destroyed and degraded for the longest, that you both have to exercise restraint? No, these people have nothing to live for. They lost their land. People were brought from outside in other countries, brought into their own land. They accepted to live with them on a two-state, what they call formula. And the Israelis decided, no, we don't want two states. We'll take even the little they have and put up settlements all over what essentially should have been Palestine, which is a UN mandate. It's a UN resolution that's there, that Israel should have, leave all that. And they went all the way to West Bank and everywhere. And they treat them like garbage. They treat them like trash. They spit at them. Yeah. Small Jewish children are socialized to spit at them and see them as subhumans.
All right, maybe just briefly.
But now they've decided they don't want to leave. If they're going to, the last thing they will do and perish even as the 10 million Palestinians is to regain their dignity. They will regain it at any cost. And nobody has a monopoly to violence. The West has got the power, yes. And they've done it before. But right now you can see how the Palestinians are fighting back.
Right, so the question is, in the principle of neutrality, should Kenya be going full steam ahead in condemning?
Yes, it was a mistake.
It was a mistake?
It was a serious mistake. We never condemned when Israel bombards and kills, and literally reduces Gaza into some kind of a rubble and kills 2,000 people there. You see what I mean? We never condemn the way they treat them and taken their land through settlements. We never condemn when they go into their holy mosque, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and do what they do, literally chain them up when their shoes. You want to go to a mosque, even if you're a non-Muslim, you take up your shoes, at least to respect those guys. And then they go in there and basically chain them and beat them up and tell them that you cannot pray in your own mosque. You know, imagine. They can't pray in their own mosque.
Thank you.
And now we are coming to condemn them.
Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
It makes absolute sense.
All right.
The language, what you call, there's the language of oppression. The language of oppression. That's what's being exercised right now. Oh, we condemn terrorism. So when the Israelis send jets, F-35s and F-16 and F-15 to bombard them and reduce them into rubble, that is not terrorism. But with this poor guy who only thing he has a small rocket, a rudimentary, you know.
But you have to appreciate this was sent before. Now there was retaliation from Israel with sending the rockets.
Israel has been destroying them every 5 years, every 3 years, the way they're doing now.
Thank you.
Throughout for the longest.
Right.
But right now they became a little bit more sophisticated. And by the way, let me tell you, always oppression and impunity never survives. Americans tried it in Vietnam, they lost.
Thank you. Let me come to Gladys, just looking on the other side of it, because we are in a very bad place as a country, especially with the externalities and the shocks thereof. We have the dollar. We've seen now the dollar has spiked because of this particular war that has been declared by Benjamin Netanyahu. The yen as well has really gone up. What does it really portend for our country? Now we know that the dollar is actually ticking towards 60. We are at 155. Still smarting from Ukraine. Now we have another case with us. This is bound to make the cost of living go up.
I'm hoping that this will de-escalate.
You're hoping it will de-escalate?
I'm hoping it will de-escalate.
With the pronouncement yesterday from Benjamin Netanyahu that they've declared war?
Sometimes when you say that, it makes the other people stand down. So it's a way of trying to. So we do.
I don't think it will de-escalate.
You don't think?
Honorable Farah has very strong opinions about it.
Personally, I think the Palestinians did what any dignified human race can do. We did that to the British ourselves. When they reduced us into some kind of subhumans, like cattle, we fought back, and Mau Mau fought back. My own Somalis fought back, wherever they are. The longest, what you call, war outside the European sphere where planes were used was used in Somalia against the Mad Mullah. And that's how we got our dignity back.
Thank you.
But if you allow it, you see, these people have been lying like this and asking for basic security. They were never allowed. So right now, they will fight back. And I can assure you they'll fight back.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
They will reclaim their dignity. Now, whether we want to be on the wrong side of history, the fact that, you see, Hitler one time was just so powerful, the whole world was literally shivering under. And you remember with the appeasements, you remember what you call non-interference by the British, Americans, and all that. But eventually, because he was a racist who wanted to destroy the rest of the world and create an Aryan race, he lost.
Thank you. Let's see from
and the Jews, Zionism is nothing other than a super race.
Thank you.
And the Arabs are supposed to be subhumans. They'll fight back.
Right. I think this is a standalone topic that we cannot be able to exhaust just in a few minutes. But the question would be, in 50 years, Egypt, Syria, we saw the invasion of Israel then with the Yom Kippur. The carnage that was experienced there now is actually being repeated here. Even if we're bound to see more of it, I think so far, when it's crossed over to 1,100 people dying in a spate of 2 days, that is a big worry. So in 50 years, there's never been something like we're experiencing right now.
History has been going on, but one-sided. This is what you don't understand.
Okay.
The Israelis were killing them.
History repeats itself. After the Balfour Declaration that gave birth to the formation of
the State of Israel.
State of Israel, a number of things happened. The 1967 war, then the peace initiative between Jordan and Egypt, and then the Oslo Peace Accord, and finally 2018, 2019 normalization, what they are calling
two-state formula.
No, the two-state was under the Oslo Peace Accord. And there has been a paradigm shift. The initial stage was shock after the Balfour Declaration. The Arabs didn't expect this. But after 1967 war, the reality is dawned on the Arabs. The reality is they must accept the existence of the newly independent Israeli state. And that is what now gave birth to all the other challenges, the wars, then until the Oslo Peace Accord. The Oslo Peace Accord provided the foundation for the two-state solution. That has not been implemented. And this is now the biggest challenge. Of course, the weakness is because of the international community.
No.
The hardline approach by the Israeli government. Let me put my
Okay, you go ahead.
It has not been implemented. The two-state solution.
You think the Jews are watching you, so go ahead.
No. Because I subscribe to this and I understand the way it happened. There was a decision. The decision, part of the Palestinian leadership accepted, Al-Fatah faction. The other part refused. So it will not be implemented. The Israelis took advantage and divided the two groups. In fact, if you go back to the very existence of this Hamas group, how they even came up, you'll be surprised that there's an element of
let's not allow this.
Of the divide and rule component of. So, because of this right now, what is the end game? The end game is innocent people are being killed from both sides. Innocent women and children from the Palestinian families are being killed. Innocent women and children from the Israelis are also being killed. What is the ultimate solution? The ultimate solution is something that President Erdogan said yesterday in Istanbul. The world must accept the reality that the only solution
is
the two-state solution and a negotiated solution that will recognize the existence of Palestinians, the Palestinians, and will also accept the existence of the Israelis. This is the only way the world can move on. If in the absence of this, you expect the continuation of the same bloodshed, and it's not going to be in the interest of anybody.
Right, thank you. All right, before we took a short break, I had promised that we'll just look at some of the decisions the government has actually backtracked on that were made previously. And we know the government has allocated 741 million shillings, that is $5 million US, and 30 acres of Kenyatta University land to the World Health Organization to support the establishment of Afro-Regional Emergency Operations and Logistics Hub. The announcement was preceded by a meeting between Public Health Principal Secretary Mary Modoni and WHO officials in Nairobi to advance the undertaking aimed at bridging gaps in responding to public health emergencies. And according to the Ministry of Health, WHO Afro is currently managing over 142 ongoing emergencies, including disease outbreaks and humanitarian crises, solidifying its role as a global hub for the public health challenges. And the establishment of this hub in Kenya promises not only to enhance regional coordination, but also to become a center of excellence for emergency operations. Maybe I just wanted to ask, first of all, this was in the previous administration, and we saw it really came under attack, and all that frosty relationship that became between the government and the Vice Chancellor being shown the door. The court now reinstated him back. And also President Ruto applauded that move by the courts as well. But this decision that has come back, first of all, that 30-acre piece of land, if it's being run as a parastatal, because that has not been made very limpid, and I think the Attorney General, as I mentioned before, had made the indication that on a legal notice for 2019, it is a parastatal. But before, he had actually indicated this particular teaching and referral hospital, it is under Kenyatta University's management. So now this piece of land, don't you think it opens a spawning ground for a court litigation if it's not very clear who's running this particular institution? What does it do? Before we had Wanaina really fighting for that particular land, and now it's being excised from the university.
You see, the university is a government institution. The referral hospital is a government institution too. It has nothing to do with, Wainaina is an employee of one of the institutions in there. If the government at the end of the day makes up its own decision. There's nothing like going to court. You go to court to ask what the government to allocate this instead of allocating to what WHO.
No, they had plans for the land. They had plans according to...
Yeah, but those plans, government plans, can change. The government is always there. You look at what's in the best interest of the country. You look at what is in the best interest of the country. So if it's in the best interest of the country to create this hub, which I fully support myself. You see, when they got caught up in the politics of the day. The politics of the day. You know, when Ena was fighting, Uganda was his predecessor. And that essentially is where we are now. But the reality of the matter is that we need that hub more than anything else. We need a state-of-the-art, modern referral hospital that is independent, that's a teaching hospital, that's able to teach students from Kenyatta, but it's a parastatal, it's on its own. The same way Kenyatta National Hospital is a parastatal that is independent on its own, but is also a teaching hospital for University of Nairobi. The same way the Moi Referral Hospital is a teaching hospital for Moi University, but it's an independent entity. You see what I mean? So you can't have a university running a teaching hospital. We haven't had that tradition, and we don't want to have it. There is that interlinkage that's there, which has been there with the University of Nairobi, Moi University, and even themselves. We will support that. That has got to be supported, but let it stay as independent as it is, to give a state-of-the-art, what do you call modern services to Kenyans, which matches Aga Khan, Nairobi Hospital, all these top hospitals. And it's doing that. It has a cancer center, I think the only one of its type, yes, in this place, which will cost us over 2 billion shillings. That lady is doing wonders. She's doing magics in there. So we don't want to get caught up in that small, you know, have the former boss of Wainaina, and now he's there now, and we don't want to get caught in that. Let us, and if you're going to get a hub, a regional hub for WHO, so be it. That's the best thing. The only thing is that we have to go into certain negotiations with WHO, and employment, what percentage will be Kenyans, that kind of stuff. Of course, the top leadership is for them to decide who's going to be the director. They can bring him from Barbados or bring him from Nicaragua, whatever they want. But of course, the bulk of the other medical staff, they will get employment. The same way the UN is here at Gigiri in our midst, and Kenyans are the ones who are working there more than anything else. But the leadership can come from any part of the world. So I think those are good ideas that essentially we don't have to waste time on it, and nobody should go to court for that. And even if they go to court, the executive can do what it has to do with the national assets that are there. Right. Nobody can go to court.
Gladys.
Yeah, I think, the confusion that's coming here was the personality fights that was going on at Kenyatta University. Yes. That is now affecting, even it's coming into conversations of legalities of various institutions. If you removed Mugenda and Professor Wainaina from the discussion, then the facts become even clearer. Because we know very clearly that when a hospital is a teaching and referral hospital, there are two things that are required. One, that there is a teaching institution annexed to it. Because one, you're able, because you can only thrive as a referral hospital when you have professionals being trained at a specific level coming into the hospital. So it provides a teaching space for the teaching institution. It also provides labor and human resource, because a lot of these students actually work in the teaching hospital. It also allows the professors that are teaching at the medical school not to teach in abstract, because usually they do word rounds with the students and are able to look case by case. Yeah. It makes teaching more appropriate. You know, you can't teach medical students in a classroom. You have to teach them on cases, which are usually in a hospital. That's why every teaching hospital has, teaching medical school has attached to it a medical facility. Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. The hospital is what provides for the Moi University Medical School as the teaching institution. The same thing with the Kenyatta National Hospital. It also has that. So yes, it's not, one cannot do without the other. You can't have a teaching referral hospital if you do not have even a referral hospital without just having the students who are being taught there. As to the issue of, I think it's one of the big agenda items for any country to try and woo international organizations to come and set up in their own countries. Many countries actually give the land free of charge. They usually even give them facilities. They sometimes even give them rebates and waivers on various items, sometimes bringing in the equipment without paying tax and so on. because it is beneficial to the country for the WHO to establish in Kenya. WHO has had a close working relationship from the beginning with Kenya. We know that when we had the locust invasion a few years ago, it was WHO that spearheaded and provided the pesticides that were being used to clear up the locust invasion. When we have all sorts of challenges, usually you work with WHO because some of the medications required actually come from WHO. When it comes to protocols relating to dealing with COVID, for example, Kenya could not have done it in isolation. Again, they link with international organizations like WHO. So why would anybody have an argument about that? At the time, when it was there was an objection about it, was more because there was the personality and political fights that were going on at the university, and then it ended up affecting the decisions of very important matters. And lastly, even let us assume that Kenyatta University wants to run the hospital. One, they can hardly pay their own lecturers. And even when they pay them, they don't pay them a decent pay. If you look at the teaching referral hospitals, there are some of the best employers in the country. Moi Teaching Referral Hospital, Kenyatta National Hospital are some of the best employers. So they attract the very best of our health workers.
Right, but
so you need that first of all, because how do you differentiate the pay if you say it's part of University of Nairobi? I mean Kenyatta University. How do you now deal with the pay issues? Because the salaries and HR structure for the teaching hospital is very different from the actual lecturers who teach at the university. There is also the challenge of maintenance of equipment and so on, and attracting funding to be able to help the teaching hospital. If you look, the funding for Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital and Kenyatta National Hospital don't come from the county. It's not a devolved part. It's set at the national level, and they get funding, they get equipment, they get exchequer that is provided to them to be able to run their operations and so on. And when they need to expand to new areas again, the resources are available. When Kenya signs bilateral agreements, treaties with other countries where some of this is provided to the hospitals, it comes initially directly to the teaching, these particular teaching hospitals. It would be very disadvantageous for Kenyatta Hospital, teaching hospital, to try and run on its own and say we are going to be under Kenyatta University. Not only is it against the law, but also it will be detrimental to its operations. Yeah.
But which law are we talking about?
Law.
There is an act of parliament.
Which act of parliament are we? Yes.
There is an act of parliament. I forget what it's called, but I know that the teaching hospitals are under an act of parliament, and so is the university. Separate acts of parliament.
All right.
I can actually, if I had my iPad, I'd check it up.
Yeah, because we had Dr. Nyikal, I think, also mentioning the fact that, even from the inchoate stages of coming up with the teaching referral hospital, the main idea was, just as you said, that it should be running concurrently with the medical school, right? And that was the mandate to be run under the ambit of a university and not as a parastatal. So where there was a deviation is where the question is arising. Because he was part of that formation, even with Professor Olive Mugenda.
No, this is how it happened. Kenyatta University wanted to expand. Kenyatta University originally was for education, predominantly, and arts. That was what the university taught. But when the university decided to expand to have a medical school and a faculty of a faculty of medical sciences, the challenge was, where is the teaching institution? I know at the beginning they tried to use Thika, I think Thika level 4 hospital at that time, but it was not up to standard. They were having challenges because then the students were not getting the full array of training as required and as per standard. And it was during, I think, the tenure of Olive Mugenda, Professor Olive Mugenda, credit should go to her. It was her brainchild. And they began to slowly begin to conceptualize the building of the teaching hospital to support the medical faculty that they were establishing at the university. So that is what it was. But it wasn't envisaged, because the moment it becomes a referral hospital, then you would have to it would have to become a separate entity for their own good, so that they can attract the funding that's available in government for teaching and referral hospitals.
Right. Let me ask Honorable Kanan, because also looking at the corporate governance aspect of it, from the Vice Chancellor, who was Professor Olive Mugenda, to the chairperson now of Kenyatta University, isn't that a violation of the corporate governance as we know it? Because you cannot just jump from being a CEO to, a chairman. There has to be a break in between. At least it's like what the governors are saying here, or the senators, that now you are a governor and then you win as a senator. You come oversight yourself.
But she was not running the university. She was not running the hospital.
I think let's get the facts.
No,
she was not running the hospital. She was vice chancellor of the university.
I think Dibal get the facts.
Please, maybe I'm distorted. You can clarify.
Kenyatta University is a quasi-government agency by an act of parliament. Kenyatta University Referral Hospital is a quasi-government agency by an act of, either through that gazette notice or by an act of parliament. That issue was subjected to a bit of legal interpretation by the chief legal advisor of the government, who is the Attorney General. He made a decision that the University Referral Hospital is a prestator.
But earlier also...
Just a minute. These are the known facts. The Referral Hospital, the chair is the former Vice Chancellor of Kenyatta University. The issue that is now subject of debate is whether part of the land, huge chunk of land owned by Kenyatta University, can be hived to house the World Health Organization, which is a credible UN agency. And I think in anybody's mind, hosting the World Health Organization in Kenya should be a plus. Should be a plus. Should be something that we should all be
immense benefits.
Immense benefit in terms of employment opportunities, in terms of foreign exchange earning, in terms of even prestige. That is one.
Training. Availability
so
of vaccines.
The other bit is the jurisdictional conflict now. Whether it is a personality cult or personality clash or institutional conflict, this issue now can be sorted out administratively. Professor Mugenda is an astute, an academic giant. I must say, Professor Wainaina,
administrator too.
Professor Wainaina is also highly celebrated academic giant. Each one of them have their own history. Now, because of this conflict, the government now has got involved. The presidency has made a decision, and that decision was subjected to a legal interpretation through the Office of the Attorney General. That issue now should be settled, and we should be very proud that the World Health Organization now is going to be housed in Kenya. So the other administrative issues actually should be sorted out. As to whether the Kenyatta University Referral Hospital will be an extension of the medical school of Kenyatta University is something that these institutions can collaborate, work out, because no institution operates in isolation. And I think, for God's sake, this country doesn't need those petty quarrels. Kenyatta University Referral Hospital and Kenyatta University should collaborate, work together for the benefit of the people of Kenya, and allow the World Health Organization to be housed there. It's something that we should be very proud of, because we will get a lot of funding and other opportunities, both direct and indirect. So it's because of these petty political issues that right now that has, made the whole thing look bad. That is not what we need. What we need is Kenyatta University is second best university in Kenya. The medical facility is something that they require. By their own decision, they established a medical school. Why don't these agencies work together for the comfort, for the good of the student fraternity, and for the Kenyan people, and for the world at large? And that is what we need. So wherever they are, and I must admit that once I was also a student at Kenyatta University, wherever they are, Professor Mugenda, Professor Wainaina, I know all of them, two good, very professors. We do not need this quarrel. Sit down, solve this apparent jurisdictional conflict in the most amicable manner that will add value to both the student fraternity, the Kenyan people, and the world at large. And that is what we need right now.
All right, we need to go far, but I'll be remiss if you don't touch also on the issue of the ports. And that also had raised some trepidations around the Coastarians regarding the privatization of a port. And we saw the president also coming clearly to say this is not a sale of a port or it being privatized, so to speak, but a concession. But that is where we have, as I say, the devil is in the details.
I don't know what kind of a concession, to be honest with you.
When you talk about concessions, where now we don't have the clarity.
Privatization, concession, these are two different things. But more or less, both of them emphasize a situation in which the management of the port is going to shift to another entity. And I have my serious misgivings about that. Because I happen to have been pretty much in the center of understanding when Dubai Port International was taking over Djibouti, the port of Djibouti.
They have taken over, actually.
They took it over, but of course they were kicked out later on. The matter is in the international court. The Djiboutians have been running their own affairs now for the longest. Those things never work. And if it is from the Emirates, then you are courting a disaster. The Emirates want to monopolize all the ports along the East African coast. They've taken over Berbera, they're taking over Bosaso, they want to take over Mogadishu, they want to take over Awazia, and the whole idea is not to promote these things as centers of big expansion, but then as to stop them from competing with Dubai Port International, which handles 64 million, TEUs every year. And that's exactly why the Djiboutians decided no. They threw them out and they took over. Then we should compete with them. We can engage the best port managers in the world, from Felixstowe, from Liverpool, from all the ports in the Hamburg, Rotterdam, all of them.
Hong Kong,
Singapore, all of them are there. Instead of us giving this authority and this management of our own port to another competitor, to our competitor. The way they've done with this, they savaged and literally destroyed all those. That's why they're involved in the conflict in Somalia. They had the issues also with the Eritreans, because they want to take over some of the ports of the Eritreans and they couldn't. They have the issues with everybody. And I don't think we should allow that to happen. With Djibouti, the same thing also. We can't allow that. They also had it with the Sudanese, and eventually when they couldn't get the way they wanted, because they wanted to take over Port Sudan, they supported the other side right now in the conflict in Sudan. They are there at the center of the conflict in Sudan, literally fanning the what do you call the fires of war there. So my position is that we should never touch the Emirates with a 10-foot long pole. If you want to change this for the better, Singapore is the best, what do you call, example. Let us go and get some of the best Singaporeans who have brought about the magics out there, and recruit them on salaries and let them come and, literally transform our ports here. You get my point? I also subscribe to the fact that we should separate the two ports. There is no ports authority. There is ports authority for regulatory purposes in UK, for example. But Felixstowe operates separate from Liverpool, operates separate from every of those ones, of those other ports in UK. The same thing also in Germany. Every port is an entity in itself. They're actually competing between themselves. You see what I mean? When you say the ports authority and have only one thing for a number of ports, then it's going to become too extended and it's not right. So let us have Lamu Port as a separate entity, separate parastatal on its own, that essentially has very little to do with the Mombasa Port, other than competition.
Right, but the question is it for the efficiency? Because it was highly profitable, going by what we've heard from also the news recently. Why would you want to fix it if it's actually profitable?
I think the discussions about the ports in Kenya has been ongoing for a while. One of the challenges that came out is that the equipment that we have are old and obsolete. It needs to have new infrastructure put in, new machinery put in, new systems, even the management systems that they're using to go to a more wholly digital system and so on. So there needs to have a lot of investment to bring it to the current times, because it's outdated. And of course, had the management been efficient as it should be, then they would have been looking ahead 10 years each time and being able to reorganize the port for the future that it's going towards. So you don't wait until the future is here and then you suddenly think, oh my God, we are so far behind, how can we do it? Then it becomes such a huge challenge that you end up having now the conversations that you want to give out a concession or invite someone else to run into the management. But just remember, I know that Honorable Farah has set out, he seems to have a story behind the story, where it has failed, where these systems haven't worked in other countries. That's very good information. And if I was the lawyer drawing up the agreement for Kenya on this concession, then I would be listening to people like Honorable Farah. They would say, this went wrong in Djibouti. So that you make sure that in your terms of engagement, you ensure that that doesn't happen. What happened in Djibouti? You'd look at what happened in Sudan, as you say. Again, so because this is not, you're not going to be given an agreement that says, okay, you sign against it. It's negotiated. So you're able to say, we don't want this particular clause, or we want this clause included to protect us from what happened in Djibouti, to protect us from what happened in Sudan, and so on. If you believe, and it's brought in that part of the mischief we want to prevent is to have Dubai port controlling the whole of the African East Coast, yes. Then you make sure that you put in terms again in the agreement to ensure that that doesn't happen, and that's why when it's issues like this that are negotiated, you can actually protect yourself, unless you don't have good lawyers on the table to be able to come up with the agreement for you. And remember again, you can't from the onset say, I'm not dealing with this particular country or that organization. They will all be free to apply. Then you look at who is giving you the best deal, or the deal that protects you in the way that you have raised concerns for. So it's very useful to listen to the concerns and look at what has gone wrong in other countries. So I wouldn't say that I would condemn it just because it has not worked in other countries. They probably didn't negotiate a good contract. But also in items like this, you make sure you have a very good exit clause factored into the agreement, so that you do the exit clause in such a way that it doesn't harm you, but also you can have a trial period that you can interrogate what is their strategic plan, so that built in the agreement is their strategy for the next so many years. That way, you know that the strategy will not include taking over your port and turning you into a dummy, or to prevent competition with their own ports. So it is something that can be carefully crafted, and that's why it's always important when you get into this kind of agreements. Once you agree in principle, take more time. Agreeing in principle is a very quick issue, but reaching a negotiated agreement is what should take long.
Right.
It should not be rushed.
Can I just say
from Mheshimiwa first before I come to you, Farah, because even because of time, and that's the critical question as well. When we have this as critical infrastructure, and this is happening also to Telecom Kenya, where we know Telecom Kenya and the assets and the undersea cables as well. This is a critical infrastructure for the country.
Strategic, actually.
Strategic, but a critical strategic infrastructure. But the question again is, when we hand over our critical strategic infrastructure
to foreigners,
to a private entity, aren't we exposing ourselves so much when it comes to telecom? When it comes to
the management, you're not giving out theirs.
But what do you?
Yes. That's a very important question. Very important, and I think it has been ably answered by Farah. But let me just say this: Kenya Ports Authority is a national asset. Sometimes it's laden with a bit of regionalism, coastal politics, and this.
No, but we look, is a critical infrastructure in light of the imports are coming into the country. How then do we control
Let me explain this. Let me explain the other bit. Has it been working effectively, efficiently? The answer is no. If anything, that boat can fund, if it's efficiently run, can fund the economy of the Republic of Kenya. Just like the Djibouti port now funds the entire economy of Djibouti. That's what I'm told. Maybe Vara has more information than the same. That being the case, we are now in the issue of privatization versus concession. In both, there has to be public participation. Public participation that will require the input of parliament, that will require the further interrogation actually of the different government facility. It's not something that James Zuma will just sit somewhere in a boardroom and hand over Kenya Ports Authority to a different unit. I entirely agree with what both Honorable Farah and Honorable Shile have said, that the issue of handovering that strategic critical infrastructure should be subjected and handled with a lot of due care. Because in Kenya, and I'm sorry to say this, look at all the divestitures that this country has. None has worked. None has worked so far. Look at every bit of all the privatization that this country has carried out. None has worked. Uchumi, Zoya, Mumias, the Kenya Wine Agencies, Telecom Corporation, literally none has worked. Why is this not working? It's simply because the route, the way we implement this, the way we do this diversion, the way we do this privatization is laden with corruption. And it's done in an opaque manner. So it's high time that those who engage with this, whether it is through concession or whatever they want to call it, should be done in the most transparent, the most open manner, so that there should be no iota of corruption in that particular dealing. Because KPA is our lifeline. And therefore, this country is a very critical national asset. And therefore, what I agree with what Honorable Gladys has said. This issue, at the end of the day, we need to look at it from two perspectives. What are the economic gains that this country is going to generate from that privatization, or whatever you want to call it, and quantify the same and give it to a national meaning. If that will be devoid of that particular gain, then it's not worth giving out to any other entity. Let's have Kenya Ports Authority efficiently run, and we have highly skilled people. The only thing is, because of our lackluster approach, people are not willing to work. So that port, whatever name we want to call it, forget it about now the feelings by the coastal people, is our national asset. And therefore, whatever changes that will happen to its operation should be subjected to proper public participation. And that is the only thing that will guide us.
Thank you. Let's leave it at that. And
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, as we wind up.
You see, let me tell you.
Gladys has to go.
Let me tell you one thing. If you are in a trucking business, and you have your competitor, your chief competitor in that trucking business, and you decide that you're going to take that competitor to run your organization for you, there's a serious conflict of interest. We are in competition with Dubai for transit cargo. The bulk of the cargo that goes through these places are transit cargo. But because Dubai, you have to go into the Persian Gulf, or you call it the Arabian, whatever it is, and 1,200, we are in a better strategic place.
That's
we
why
are
when the
major,
bids come
major
in,
sea
you
lines.
can use that to disqualify
Just a moment. We are in the major sea lines. I'll give you one example. Djibouti, when they gave it over to them, they were handling at around 320,000 TEUs per year. You know how much Djibouti is handling now? Close to 1 million TEUs per year. We are handling right now just about 600,000 TEUs to containers. Our capacity 2.1 million. What do you call it? We need better management. We have the infrastructure. We have the capacity. If it is changing a few, because
2.1 trillion.
2.1 million. We can handle 2.1 million TEUs per annum. We can actually increase that to 3 times, 4 times that, because Dubai is handling more than 40 million. You get my point? So what basically I'm trying to tell is that you don't give your competitor to run your assets, and then the national strategic assets. The British will never privatize British telecommunication. They will never privatize British Airways. They will never privatize British railways. You get my point? Those are strategic national assets.
Thank you, Farah.
I think if I got it clearly from the communication that was made from government, was that it's not privatization.
It's a concession. It's
a concession, and not of everything, of certain certain aspects of the port operations. So again, like I said, all of it is what you put in the agreement, because you'll tell yourself we have good human resources in Kenya, we have highly well-trained people who can manage and run the port, we have the labor, we can do the employees. We have many people who can be subcontracted a lot of the activities locally. But there'll be certain specialized aspects where we don't have the experience. And you can say we are bringing in a strategic partner for a specified period of time, within which time we should have gained the knowledge and the expertise and so on. So I think, again, I would be for me to be able to interrogate it better, I want to see exactly what we are conceding in this concession.
Gladys,
Then that way we'll have a more meaningful
I totally agree with you,
We
but
need to
only
line
on one what they call rider. One rider. It's not that they are going to bring in investments to increase our capacity. The investments in capacity is already there. We have a capacity to handle 2.1 million TEUs. And all we handle right now is slightly over 600,000.
Thank you.
You get my point?
Right,
so
we need to wind up.
basically, whenever they went in, Gladys, listen to me carefully. Wherever they went in, they devastated it. And you can't bring in a country. Well, they're very good at corruption. One thing is not questionable. Wherever they go with tons and tons of money, and that's essential. But at the end of the day, for the national interest will be compromised in the biggest possible way.
Maybe I'm being a very technical lawyer. I want to see what is it we are agreeing on for me to comment, so that I'm not saying they could say that and they could say that and they could do that. But your fears are very useful and would be very good background information for anyone developing the agreement. And with that, Dibal, kindly allow me to...
Thank you. We are leaving right now.
Yes.
So there's a big event as well. The launch of the book. You can tell us a bit about...
Professor Frank Njenga, the father of psychiatry in Kenya, is launching a book that he has recently written named called Healing the Mind. I'm a big ambassador for mental wellness and mental health, destigmatizing it, decriminalizing suicide, and suicide prevention program. So it's something that's close to my heart.
So you are in
somebody I highly respect.
Yes.
So I'd like to be allowed to leave. I'm the guest of honor there.
Thank you. We should be leaving now. And tomorrow, of course, is Heroes Day. We expect you guys to be also. Where is it going to be?
And it's the World Mental Health Day too.
Yes,
so
tomorrow.
I'll be attending something at Mathare Hospital.
And this month, of course, is all about mental health as well.
Yes.
Let's get your closing remarks briefly, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I still want to delve on the issue of...
Don't delve, just give a cursory remarks as we're closing, because if you delve, we don't have the time. Music is already up.
Yes,
we'll pick it up next week.
I think under the three arms of government, we should take a lot of due care in formulating certain policy decisions that will have permanent impact.
Judicial interference.
Permanent impact on the people of Kenya, whether it is judicial interference, whether it is parliamentary dominance, or whether it is lack of due diligence by the executive. All of us should subscribe to both the tenet, the spirit, and letter of the Constitution.
Personally, the only thing I would say is that we are going through some very tough times. And right now, with the new Gulf War that has started, there's no question about the fact that the cost of living is going to go like hell. Like hell. And it's not because the government has not done the right things, but because of the global, what they call phenomena, which is there. We should, as much as possible, try and unite this country and try and do the best, because for us to survive as a country, as a nation and a state, over this period of very difficult, trying times. People even wonder that there could be a third world war this time as a result of those things.
We have to go far.
So basically,
it's a reality.
The unity of the country, in my opinion, myself, and the safety and the security of our people is more paramount to me than anything else. And don't touch the Emiratis with a 10-foot long pole.
Don't stand on my short here. Thank you. Right, we really do appreciate your conversation this morning. I think very insightful. And we hope some of these things that have been said here shall be implemented. Honorable Kenan, that particular bill as well, from the sports. He
has given a lot of undertakings. We'll watch him.
We'll watch him,
on the spot.
We're both in the, she's there as my boss. I'm the speaker's panel. We're waiting for for him to do.
Farah, by now, I don't act in vain. So certainly I will.
All of the having you guys. Thank you so much. Happy Heroes Day is tomorrow. And